several ways that the climate tech industry can uplift communities while we fight this climate crisis. One way I find most impactful is to create jobs. We have to take a look at our job descriptions, and sometimes it's time for us to revise them and make sure that it's more inclusive. Do we still need the same skill set? Is that education requirement actually required, preferred, or even necessary? This allows more people on the playing field to compete and for you to get the best pool of candidates. Second, it's time for us to look at our recruitment resources, and maybe time for your team to go back and develop new relationships with workforce development pipelines that will lead you to the best talent the market has to offer versus your LinkedIn network. Sometimes we leave really good talent on the table, and all of these not so good practices lead to unfair hiring practices. I'm Evette Ellis. I'm the Chief Workforce Officer and co-founder of ChargerHelp, and this was your Big Little Talk.
Addressing climate change requires us to transition away from fossil fuels. But in many sectors, traditional fossil fuel workers will lead this transition. The oil and gas industry has driven technology innovation and development all around the world. We must change how we get our energy, but the skills involved in drilling, offshore construction, fuel processing, and more can be key to a clean energy future. My industry, geothermal energy, is a great example. We drill wells just like the oil and gas industry, but instead of producing hydrocarbons, we use the natural heat of the earth to generate electricity 24/7 without emissions. Geothermal has traditionally been a small industry, but recent breakthroughs in drilling technology have made it more accessible than ever. Our company, Fervo Energy, is leading the way in scaling next-generation geothermal, adapting technologies like horizontal drilling and advanced data acquisition from the oil and gas industry to dramatically lower the cost of development. Geothermal at scale could employ many of the people involved in oil and gas development today. We should make this a reality because giving fossil fuel workers an opportunity to have a just transition into a clean energy future is the right thing to do and can help us transition faster. I'm Tim Latimer, CEO of Fervo Energy, and this was my Big Little Talk.
If we want to mitigate climate change and have a successful renewable energy transition, we need to authentically engage with tribal nations and indigenous peoples in energy and climate policy. 5 centuries of energy policy have negatively impacted the health of indigenous peoples, tribal lands, and have affected indigenous livelihoods for generations. We need to change this paradigm and status quo. We need an energy and climate future that uplifts indigenous communities and economies by centering indigenous voices and leadership. But we also need to do so because indigenous leadership and renewable energy development on tribal lands is critical to meeting tangible goals of limiting climate change and staying within our planetary boundaries. In the United States alone, tribal lands encompass just 2% of the landmass, but hold more than 5% of solar PV potential. A paradigm shift, authentically engaging in consultation and collaboration with indigenous peoples and making space for indigenous leadership is paramount to all of our success. My name is Mayane Chavez Barudin, tribal member of Gila Pueblo, Executive Director of Sovereign Energy, and this is my Big Little Talk.